I've been called so many problematic things.
I've been, look, nobody gets anybody's name right. I've been called Kevin, Craig, Howard. It doesn't matter.
No. All right, guys. It looks like we are live. So thank you all for joining us. I want to thank everybody for tuning in to the Anti-Racism and Improv Education panel. I am your moderator today, Hank Rawlerson. I am the Director of Development for the Baltimore Improv Group, and I am joined here by a very esteemed panel of improvisers as well as improviser educators that are here today to share some of their advice, their stories, their thoughts and views on improv as a whole and how we can really attack the racism within it and create an anti-racism improv environment. As we all know, the Baltimore Improv Group is currently taking a look at the way that we do our entire curriculum, and we're excited to have an opportunity to speak to the panel that we have today in order to see what we need to do to truly build a curriculum that supports our vast variety of people, especially our Black community. So the purpose of this panel is for BIG to grow our understanding of how to make improv education programming more inclusive, more equitable, and anti-racist. Of course, we aren't the experts, but our esteemed panelists here have that wealth of knowledge and experience, and we hope to learn from them and act upon to make a safer, more anti-racist creative space. We did want to shout out before we get started the Socially Distant Improv Group for inspiring us with their anti-racism comedy folk series in an effort to continue to grow the educational resources around these issues. Our panel tonight and this discussion will be recorded and uploaded to the BIG's Improv online YouTube channel, so people will be able to get back and see this. And last but not least, our chat feature will be open throughout the discussion. So although questions won't be answered because we do have specific questions that our group put together, we will hopefully be able to gather the questions that our audience members have and hopefully come back to those at a later date. So without further ado, let me introduce our panel that we have today. Starting with Jon Carr. Jon Carr has been an improviser for over 15 years. He is the artistic director of Dad's Garage Theater Company and a founding member of the All African American Improv Group, Dark Side of the Room. He's also a playwright, having written a number of plays, including Black Nerd, winner of the 2018 Susie Bass Award. Next up, we have Keisha Zollar. She's a writer, comedian, showrunner, and producer whose sketch comedy show Astronomy Club premiered on Netflix in late 2019. In addition, she just finished writing a topical sketch show, Splitting Image on BritBox, a reboot of the popular British series. Keisha was also an executive producer on The Read with Kid Fury and Cassell, and writing supervisor on Busy Tonight, a writer on The Opposition with Jordan Klepper on Comedy Central, story editor on Harlem Code, and co-writer on the digital series Astronomy Club Presents for Comedy Central. She is real California neurotic with some New York chill. Next up, we have Keith Williams. Keith Williams is an improv masterclass coach, leadership coach, and founder of Better with Improv. He's been practicing, performing, and teaching improv for 10 plus years. The mission of Better with Improv is to help you reduce the fear of embarrassment through the joy of improvisation so that you can reach your maximum potential and have even better connections. Keith teaches improv for beginners to professional improvisers. He teaches improv for actors and applied improv for business. He's a member of Queen City Comedy, an artist collective of improv, sketch and stand-up comedy, a moderator for the Improv Place, a UK-based global improv community for collective improv training and collaboration. And currently, Keith is focused on the question, is improv for everyone, which inquires about race and improv. And that piece will appear on his YouTube channel, Better with Improv, which which is about making everything better with improv. And last but not least, we have Julia Morales. She's an actor, writer, director, and teacher, originally from Houston and currently residing in Chicago. She's been involved in the improv community scene, comedy scene for almost 15 years and has performed improv and sketch comedy all over the country. Currently, she's touring. She's a touring company cast member with Second City and director of diversity and outreach at the Annoyance Theater. She's also the founder of the 10,000 Hours program, as well as upcoming Stepping Stone Theater in Chicago. So those are our panelists, and guys, you have a lot of credentials. That was a lot to read. I appreciate that. So also, I want to mention to the folks in the chat, you did see some contact information. We got some Venmo in there. We got some Cash App information. So, you know, if you like what you hear and you want to reach out in a variety of different ways, feel free to reach out to our panelists. But let's get started with the first question that we have. So this is something that we definitely have experienced at the Baltimore Improv Group, and I'm sure you all have experienced it as well. But how do you or how does your school deal with the triggering or offensive content that might happen in class? And Keisha, can we start with you?
Yeah, it's interesting because I haven't taught as much of late. In my context right now is a lot of entertainment, and I'm actually teaching again because I love it. And for me, as a teacher, it was always about like putting the brakes on things as they were coming, because I feel like instinctually I would always feel that. And my feeling is always to address the elephant in the room. So it was always to talk about it and deal with those moments head on and recognize where there's so much inequality. And I always say, it's like, hey, do we want to recreate systems of oppression, or do we want to make new choices? And most people are like, yeah, no, new choice. I was like, brilliant. Let's pause, take a beat, and rewind. And as somebody who's also a writer, that's also my approach to the work. That like, I think what's sometimes a challenge is, you know, people are speaking off the cuff, and sometimes all of the things come out, even the internalized things we don't want to talk about. So that's my approach to do it, is like to come at it with a, ugh, how can we do the least amount of harm? Because there's always part of me who's thinking about my marginalized students who experience the harm of how terrible the world is and how is this impacting them, and me as the mama bear I am, how can I protect them to the best of my ability?
Sorry, John, how about you?
Agree with everything that Keisha just said. I think another big part of that is at the beginning of classes, outline that stuff. Like I've been teaching long enough that I've seen all types of foolishness at this point. And so for me, I really like to use the beginning of those classes to have a statement. There we go. We'll do a statement at the very beginning where like, here's what's offensive, here's what's not allowed, here's what is allowed, and try to use all the experience and all the situations that we've seen in the classes in the past and try to get up front. That way, when something does happen, I have something to point back to. And I can say, hey, remember at the beginning of this session, we talked about not doing blank? Well, it just happened. So, you know, it's not a personal thing. I'm not attacking you because we established this at the beginning. And so having that being upfront and clear as much as possible. And for me, the other thing is there's always that student that wants to show you how smart they are and wants to tell you about how like comedy is about free speech and expression and I gotta be myself. And so there's always that conversation that A, I hate having, and B, we'll stop a class and you'll be stuck there for an hour trying to have this conversation. So for me in those moments, I'm all about addressing those moments when they happen. If someone comes back with an argument, then I'll just be like, listen, we can talk about theory all day long, but let me tell you, I've been booed on stage, and what you just said will get you booed on stage. So don't do that. And if we need to have a deeper discussion, let's you and I sit down and talk about it after class. And you're there for learning, and I'm all about helping them learn not just improv, but also learning about anti-racism and like sitting down and having those conversations with those people. And that's the big thing for me as well.
Great. Julia, do you have anything to add on this one?
Yeah. So I'm definitely I do the same thing. I set my rules right from the top, just like guidelines of how I approach things, and same thing like Keisha said, which is to address it, in the class in that moment. And one thing that I do want to offer as well is something that I can relate to, having grown up I grew up in Texas, big red state, and for the era that I grew up in, I learned a lot of things from other kids, and just the way it was, in Texas. Just offensive things, and I'm addressing offensive things in general, not just racism. And I say that to say that I've been that person who had to learn. I learned a lot when I moved to New York. I learned a lot, and I didn't realize that some of the things that I would naturally say, just because I'm from Houston, because that's what we say, were very offensive to other people, or having a certain mindset. So I say that to say is I'm very, I'm patient because I've been in that position. I'm patient, and I'm careful about how I say things, because sometimes I've been in a position where I've seen like the teacher get very aggressive with the person, because when the person says something, it's offensive and it's wrong. But I'm also coming into it like, well, I didn't know. And I'm thankful that people who were like, hey, you shouldn't say this is wrong, were very patient with me. And I learned immediately, and I stopped. I was like, oh, my bad. It was just part of my upbringing. So I do have the kind of care and compassion to really like, hey, do you understand why this is offensive? Like, just be careful about what you're saying. And I'll sometimes open it up to the group, like, what are other things what are other choices that this group could have made, as opposed to whatever the choice it is that they've made. It's about, I know a lot of people are like, oh, I shouldn't have to teach so-and-so, I shouldn't have to do that. I get that. I'm very like, I know I've been there. I've been that person. So I want to make sure that they understand and learn and move forward and do better. But also, if a person keeps doing it over and over, then they're just being a butthole. And so then I'm like, okay, you're dismissed. Now I don't have any patience for you. I'm done with you. Because you're not even trying to learn. So that's just my other like flip side to it. Just so you know, I had to learn too.
Yeah. Thank you. And Keith, I saw you were reacting. It sounded like you've had that student before that thought they were God's gift to comedy and wanted to push the line.
Yeah. So first of all, this is a complicated question in its simplicity. And if we're talking about anti-racism and, what do you do when somebody's offensive, I think it's very clear that we don't want to be offensive. But what happens is when we teach we even have classes for how to teach improv. And one of the things that the panelists have addressed is you set boundaries. Welcome to the class. If this is a 101, here's what we're going to do. We're going to be in super agreement. Everything's going to be happy, and we're just going to have fun getting comfortable. And then you get into more of the advanced players who really think, hey, this is comedy. Have some thick skin. Here's comedy. We're going to make fun of everybody, right? So when you start getting into that, you have to really establish what's okay. I think the more nuanced thing is, how do you get your students to understand what's lazy and what's smart. You really should be playing to the height of your intelligence. So to go for a rice and beans or chicken and watermelon joke is lazy. But if you really are doing some kind of character or accent or cultural reference, if you took the time to research and get into something deeper, if you really understood what happens in a Mexican family with their abuela in a certain situation, Mexican audience members might be like, wow, that was pretty, wow, how did you know that? That's pretty funny, or that's pretty smart. But if you have a student that is clearly just being offensive or disrespectful, then we have to figure out a way to address it. And you could be the stop start. Let's stop the scene. Let's address it. You could be, hey, we're going to talk about it after. You can have a one-on-one. You can send an email. There's a lot of ways to tackle it. But I think, to me, once I see things that are a serious problem, and it could be improv things, or it could just be a personality. We try to address it in sort of an exercise. So maybe a warm up would be, hey, let's do some exercises about denial. Maybe we heard some denials, and then we do some exercise. Or let's talk about what's offensive and what's not offensive. And even when we're talking about males and females and physical space and respect and touching and kissing and all these things that that they feel real comfortable with each other, and this stuff wants to show up on stage, you have to deal with it. You have to deal with it quickly, yes, in a way that kind of doesn't embarrass them, unless they're being a butthole and they have to be kicked out. So I think that it's complicated. You want to address it up front, and you want to tackle it tactically. But if you have to draw the line, then you have to draw the line.
Yep. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to jump over to our second question. And this is, due to the double pandemic, how has your theater been impacted? And what are the ideas that you wish to keep with you? And what do you plan to leave behind? And Julia, can we start with you?
Wow. Well, if I'm going to be honest, if everybody has been paying attention to the papers and the news and the social media, it's just burned down figuratively.
That might have been why I came to you first, actually.
Okay, yeah. I can spill the real tea to an extent, but you know what? I don't know what's going to happen. These theaters during the pandemic, I have learned they have been exposed for institutionalized racism. It's not like we didn't know, but they have been exposed to the public. And so they're working, a lot of folks are working hard, and some places a little too hard to look better and do the right thing, which I commend, but I'm also like, it took a pandemic for this to happen. There are some places that are dealing with things financially. The theaters are having a hard time being able to make deals with their leases so that they can stay up. So there's a lot of theaters that are closing. IO has closed. Annoyance is in the same position where they're struggling a bit financially, and same thing with Second City. So what the plan is, to be honest with you, I know what my plan is for myself, and that's to take care of Julia Morales, and that is also to, now that things have been kind of stripped down and I see how things have been going with the other theaters, I've decided to open up my own theater. It's we're about 2.5 months into the process. I'm very excited to be my own boss, and I've listened to improvisers. I am an improviser, so I've listened to myself, and I've listened to the breaking hearts of our other BIPOC community. And that's what the theater will focus on, which is amplifying and celebrating BIPOC innovative voices. So yeah, I'm very excited for that. So that's my personal plan as far as these other theaters. I think, not to be mean, I mean, I can't even say, I'm just gonna say something nasty, and I shouldn't do that on here.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Keith, how about you? Anything that you've taken away that's been a positive? Anything that you feel like you could use?
Another complicated question. First of all, yes, you mentioned in the opening that I'm doing a piece on is improv for everybody, and the pandemic has sort of raised that question. All the things that Julia mentioned, starting with Sharna and IO and UCB and Second City and Annoyance, and what's going on in some of the LA houses. It made me ask the question, even when I was dealing with the UK places who, like the Maydays are an all white team, and they had a Black Lives Matter statement about supporting. And so one of the reasons I got involved was the ability to help kind of work with some of the code of conduct for that. So it's been interesting because I love improv, and to see it burn down, in this way is really, it's like, whoa. At the same time, I've been asking the question, where are all the Black folks at? Like, we're all sprinkled here and there. And again, I've discovered, the Black Improv Alliance and all of our lovely friends here. I knew about what Jon was doing in Atlanta, and I've just been trying to find everybody. So I think that's been a blessing. I think the pandemic itself has made this very interesting because I asked the question. I originally, Better with Improv was started with, taking the love of improv and my love of video, and I was going to try and teach online, but I was like, you can't learn improv online. That's impossible. And then you can't even do improv online. This is not going to work. But I was already in that direction. And when the pandemic hit, everyone was forced to be online. So we did a series on how to get the most out of online improv. We just talked about Zoom and being in the box and really thinking differently and how you can improv, right? Do improv. And then how that pivots toward businesses pivoting in these times and using improv rules and such. So for me, the blessing, it came, one, I met a whole lot of people that I would not have met. I just worked with Jade Suko and some other folks. I met all these beautiful melanin faces doing improv, and it just warms me up. And I think that when we go back to in real life theater, I just think we're going to be sharper. We're going to be better. We're going to have more connections, friends. We're going to be more collaborative as a global improv community. And I think there are going to be a lot of Black folks that shine. I mean, you have to look. I have to look at the positives. I might be able to go to New York City and hail a cab after this is over. Like, that's how I'm thinking about it. Like, we're getting some attention, and we need to make the most of it. If we're getting opportunities corporate wise, if we're whatever the case that we weren't getting to before, even though, again, sometimes it can feel a little affirmative action, like, hey, we're just going to hire you because we know you've been great, but now it's okay to hire you. I don't like that, but I do like the fact that we all get opportunities. So to me, there's a curse and a blessing. I think the fact that the improv houses, and there's a book called Whose Improv Is It Anyway, written by Amy Saham, and it really talks about improv being the white male narrative, and why is that? Why is that? And when we do improv, it's sort of like our own spin of improv. Yeah, Nick Cannon did something on TV, and we kind of have our own things, but to me, this is all of our improv, and we should be able to do it and bring who we are and bring that authenticity to it. So I'm looking for that. I'm looking for some blessings there.
Thanks, Keith. Jon, how about you?
How it affected us? It sucks. We're in Atlanta here. We have probably, before all this, we had 3 or 4 improv theaters that were functioning and running in Atlanta. And so I think pretty much all of them are maybes at this point about reopening. I think for us, the way that I've kind of articulated what's been happening is like this is midterms. You know, you talk to every improv theater, and like 3 or 4 years ago, they would have told you, oh yeah, we're doing some work in diversity. Oh yeah, we're trying these things, and they talked about it and talked about it, and talked about it, and then test day came, and all of a sudden, now then it's like, oh, you didn't just prepare for this at all. You did not study at all, and so we're getting that sort of like, it's that kid that like is pulling an all-nighter and trying to study and get all the words and all that at the last second. We get in some of those theaters that are like, okay, I figured out the words in the last hour and now I'm going to say them, sort of thing. And so for us, we're kind of taking this as like, all right, this is our test day. How did we do? We did not get an A+ on this test, and so now we need to go back and figure out how can we do better the next time it's going to be a test. Because I mean, that was the thing when I'm 40 years old, and so when everything happened with George Floyd, it was sad and tragic, but it was also like, well, I've been through this before. I was in LA in the 90s. I was there during Rodney King. So this isn't the first time this has happened, and this won't be the last time this has happened. And so this isn't about, you know, how can I fix things for this month or until we get back to theater. This is like, no. This is going to happen again. You're going to have another test. And if you didn't do the things that you needed to do to fix it now, and you fail again, like I don't have space for you, right? At that point, because you should know this. And so that's really how we're kind of approaching this, is like, all right, this is an opportunity for us as a theater to look within ourselves and ask ourselves the tough questions. Are we doing everything that we can possibly do as far as anti-racism, as far as gender equality? And we have to ask ourselves those tough questions. And so this is, I think, how this has affected us is really put us in a position where we have to self-examine. And so that's where we're at. We're blessed that we're in a position as a theater that we're going to be good for a while, and we're translating it. And like everything Keith said, like it pushed us into online content, and that's all stuff that will probably stay after we come back and do live stuff. So that's been great. But and echoing what Keith said as well, it's like the cool thing has been I've met so many people. I don't know that I would have ever connected with Boston in the way that I'm doing right now had it not been for everything that has come about. So in that way, I'm absolutely grateful for the connections and just seeing other Black and brown people and being able to lift up these voices that will be friends with me long after all this is gone. So that's definitely a blessing for me.
Great, thanks, Jon. And Keisha, any final words for us on this one?
It's very interesting because right now I feel like an improviser without a theater, which is interesting because right now I have various friends who are starting up theaters and have asked me to consult and help create spaces that are going to be more equitable and, you know, really talking through systems of checks and balances, because it's interesting. I always hear the word affirmative action, and I mean, oh, affirmative action, the opposite is legacy. That legacy benefits white folks and has existed all this time, and affirmative action, regardless how people might feel about it, is in reaction to the fact that being handed something for free has been happening all the time. And I'm sure we've all seen it in the theaters we've come up in, where you're like, oh, really? I mean, got questions. But so it's been interesting to see how I think it's about reframing the narrative of what our spaces will look like going back, and understanding it's not a treat for us to be in the room if we're not a powerful voice at the table. And I think gone are the days where it's like, I'm gonna play nice and accept that thing you said that is problematic, versus like, no, it's time to address it. And it doesn't come from a place of malice. I personally try to operate from my heart, but that also means I protect my heart. I have to not be tired. So I think I'm excited to see all the people I've connected with, all the energy that is coming from people who are looking to build more equitable spaces and be more responsive to information. So it's not when a newspaper article drops that a statement comes out, it's when students collectively complain or come to the school or these institutions that change happens. So articles don't come out. So I think hopefully that is the place we're going. That is, because I don't know a single theater where folks weren't telling people things were amiss. And so all of these revelations are funny to me because it's like, it's not a revelation. It's just, you did bad improv. You never listened to us, your scene partners. So if you listened to us, you could have yes anded us, and we could have been building the community that you want, that you can help lift up collectively, but you didn't listen. And so you did bad improv. So I'm gonna sweep edit this real quick.
Preach, girl, preach.
Oh my, thank you. Oh man, that was amazing. So with the Baltimore Improv Group, one of the things that we did in preparation for this, and as we're taking a look at our curriculum, is we actually had a panel and a group of teachers that met together in an effort to try to figure out what we need to do in order to create an anti-racist curriculum. And with that, this next question kind of builds upon that. How do you or your theater prepare your teachers and coaches for a diverse student body? I know one of the things that we've had an issue with in the past is notes. When coaches give notes, not necessarily understanding the cultural differences between the people that are receiving the notes, things as far as telling them to act a certain way and not to highlight their own ethnic background. So things like that. How do you talk to your coaches and your teachers and make sure that they're ready to take a step back and not expect everyone to be like them when they're doing an improv scene, that they're not the norm, that there's a diverse community around. John, can we start with you?
So I'll start here with, I think it's interesting, like when we look at this question, I think it's anti-racism, but it's also good teaching. Like, especially when we talk about like adult learning, a good teacher isn't someone who's like, all right, do A, B, C, D, now you're funny. Like that's a bad teacher. You're not doing it right. What you should be doing is leading your students and helping them find the answers for themselves, because each student is going to have their own comedic voice. And so there isn't going to be an A, B, C, D sort of approach to anything. So where people get into trouble with this kind of thing is saying, oh, you did this scene with this hot dog stand and it wasn't funny. Let me jump in and show you how to make this hot dog scene funny. And now everyone just do it like this. Like that's not just, racist and cultural and all that. That's just bad improv teaching. It has to be, hey, as a teacher, let me ask the questions to get you to your own truth about and your own reality about what's happening in this hot dog cart scene that you're doing right here. And so I think that's really where it comes to. And I think the other part of that is also that's why it's so important to have diverse teachers, because it's going to be about those conversations among the teachers that are going to be the things that help out. And this is a little bit off topic, but somebody said something a while back and I want to throw this in here. I'm very patient and I'm very all about, teaching people and leading them. And so for me, I kind of recoil a little bit about the idea of just being like, the attitude of like, teach yourself, figure it out yourself and all that kind of stuff. But somebody said something to me that really kind of changed my view of that. They're like, the challenge is that right now people are learning the words to say. they're learning, okay, if someone does this, then that means this is racist. Or like we're learning those instances when the reality is what we need to be doing is discovering and learning about anti-racism ourselves. And that's how it's going to actually stick as a concept. Because it's not about a number of phrases and here are the phrases you say. It's about understanding the concept for yourself. And so it's so important that each one of the teachers, apart from improv, are doing their own study into anti-racism and learning what that means for themselves so that they have their own understanding and aren't just repeating an article, a phrase, or a thing somebody else they heard said. So that's the big thing. But yeah, I'll let other people talk now.
Thanks. Keisha, what do you have for this one?
Yes, John. And to build on that is, I think teachers in general, this is even beyond improv, need to be comfortable saying they don't know things and that they can come to it from a place of when they come across things and they're unsure. It's like, I'm unsure. Let's ask questions around this and apologizing when they get it wrong. I think teachers need to be okay humbling themselves that they messed up. Have I probably said some stuff that was inappropriate but not knowing? Absolutely. Do I have internalized racism, misogyny, like sexism, homophobia, transphobia? Yes, I do. I live in America. So as a teacher, I come being present and willing to be open to saying, I'm sorry if I mess up, because anti-racism isn't prescriptive. Like John was saying, it isn't just don't say these 5 words and you are fine. No, it's an evolving conversation that I, as a teacher, have to participate in. And sometimes, like a bad improv scene, being like, I ate it. I ate it. I'm sorry. And these are the things I will do next time. And I apologize for any damage. And you have to move forwards. So I think the thing I hope teachers can learn is to be like, I am here because I have a skill set in these things, but I do not have a skill set on everyone's existence. So that's my hope.
Thank you. Julia?
Honestly, I don't have a whole lot to add to this because I agree 100% with everything everyone said. I just thought it was also interesting that you said, how do your theaters prepare for teachers and coaches? You said you, which is, I'm jumping on board with what they said, but I don't know, I got a little angry because I was like, they don't. I'm talking about the theaters. They don't prepare teachers for a diverse, and that's the sad part, is that we're the ones doing the work. The people in this, in this square, we're the ones doing the work. So it's as a person who is in a position where I'm doing diversity and outreach, honey, that's just the title. Because unfortunately, our faculty is still all white, and I've been pushing for more diversity in our student body. So it's hard to like try to get that when they're not even changing the faculty or the staff. It's not as diverse. But I totally agree with everything that John and Keisha were saying. So yeah.
And Keith?
Yeah, so quickly, what John said is right. First of all, the definition of racism versus bigotry versus prejudice and implicit bias. We all have implicit biases, right? So if a theater owner has implicit bias, then he can't know everything and he needs to put more people in the room. We had a giant Queen City Comedy hosted a discussion, similar panel discussion with the theater owners in the greater Charlotte area. And the question was, how can you do better? And there was, we had an expert who was what she did was she analyzed companies for their diversity and inclusion setups. And in each company she looked at, they had one person in charge of diversity, which is a mistake. you know, your CEO or CDO, Chief Diversity Officer, is not enough, right? One person in a company is not enough to say that, oh, this is diverse or not. So when you have the theaters, you need to have more people in the room to make the decisions. If you are choosing a play or a band or a performance, or you know, you're hiring these shows and you want, you know, you want to get mix up the audiences, you want to be more diverse, you have to have people who understand those things in the room with you. And that goes for improv as well. If you're picking teams or making, you know, you talk about chemistry and these teams that play together for 10 years, and maybe you can mix them up. Maybe there's a lot of things there. So so that's some of the things we're doing here in Charlotte, is having those hard discussions about it. I know Queen City Comedy specifically is really, really, really focused on diversity. We've had a lot of comedy conversations, and we've had we had an all Black comedy conversation. Really, and the question is, what do we need? And then lastly, is it's okay for a teacher to admit they don't know everything, like Julia said, and to ask the group, what do you think? And you know, what do you think? I mean, I've had improvisers say, hey, dude, I'm going to say this. Is that cool? You know, and I'm supposed to give him permission to say whatever joke he wanted to say, you know, and I was like, is it cool with you? Like, that's what I really want to know. What's in your heart? So that's the shortest answer I can give you on that. But yeah, this is good stuff, Hank.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you to Michael Hartwell for putting this together. He's our education director here at Big, and this is a great panel. One thing I neglected to mention during as people are chatting, and anybody shares this video, we do have a hashtag going on. That's hashtag AntiRacism Improv. So feel free to use that hashtag, because these are jewels that are being dropped right now that we need to make sure that people get a chance to hear and to see. Moving on to our fourth question. What is the best thing that you or your theater has done to create a safe and inclusive space for all? Keith, can we start with you?
Yeah, you know, kind of reiterate, you know, the Queen City Comedy and involved in, we have an annual festival called the Queen City Comedy Experience, which invites, again, stand-up comedians, improvisers, sketch artists, and performers to come in and do a big festival and have lots of shows. And the first thing is to make sure that that selection committee is diverse. And you know, and it's funny, the stand-up segment is heavier African American than the rest of it. But that's the first thing, is to get the right people in the room to make the decisions, to have the right thing. Second thing is, you know, we don't allow, you know, well, I mean, it happens, but we don't allow, you know, offensive discriminatory practices. And we're all about collaboration and working together. And if there is an issue, we will address it as a group. We will address it as needed. And so I think more of that has to happen. And again, the non African American folks that are on the committee are very, in our group, luckily, we're very conscious about, hey, we could be part of the problem here. We want to know what's going on. What do you think? What we should do? And they're really listening to voices. And so we need more of that. It hasn't always been that way. I've been with groups where it hasn't been that way at all, and I'm not with that group anymore. So those are the kind of things that I know that we're doing. Having conversations, intentionally bringing in celebrities to speak, and really sharing a lot of knowledge, and then you know, really kind of revising code of conduct and policies along the way.
Thank you. Julia, anything that you've seen?
Yeah, for myself, what have I done to create a safe space and inclusive? Naturally, I've always been sort of like the improv community matchmaker, I'll say, in the sense of like, if I like to uplift and help as many groups as possible, just naturally, just something I really enjoy, especially if they are, if it's an all Black team and I want to get them on stage. I have the ability and the way to get some of these folks at these theaters to get their show put up. I'm constantly making sure that I make myself accessible to hearing, because we're all going through this, and regardless, I mean, different races and so forth, we're all dealing with like some really ignorant, discriminatory things that happen to us or with people around us. And so I've always made myself accessible to other students, to talk to me about it, to see what I can do, who do I need to talk to, because sometimes I just have to be a straight up witch about it. I don't know if we can cuss on here, so I'm trying not to. So that's why I sound corny.
You can speak freely. You can curse.
But try not to be a bitch. Oh my gosh. But yeah, I like to acknowledge to other people, make sure that they know that I'm here, that awareness is just a big thing for me. It's because it's been set up the way it already has. I just try to find a way to work around it to help those like myself who are struggling and feeling discriminated against, feeling, stuck and not sure what to do. So like I said, I make it my intent to uplift and help and create programs that will help other people as best as possible. That's kind of how the 10,000 Hours program came about, where not a lot of people can afford these expensive classes, but they want to practice, they want to try stuff. So, I remember I had to save up bar cash from working at the bar for one level, and it was frustrating. And so I created a program for people to spend like $3 or donate or not pay at all to be able just to have 2 hours of practice time so that they can build their skills. And so that's kind of where I'm at. I'm constantly making programs and helping and making myself accessible to the community as best as I can.
Thank you. Keisha?
I would say for me, as I'm just a tumbleweed drifting in the wind, I am trying to just spread information and community and remind people your experience matters, and it's okay to take up space, and it's okay to find improvisers who provide you healing and to create inclusive spaces if you need to. um just because like that is also a valid thing. Like I think you see a lot of people react, and uh sometimes safety and inclusive spaces means more affinity spaces where it's like someone like me, for a variety of reasons, shouldn't be participating. And I think it's okay to understand that, to really spread the message that those spaces are really nice for some improvisers, and that's a part of their growth, and to understand that improv isn't prescriptive, so it really has to be more individualistic as we move forward. That's it.
And last but not least, Jon.
Yeah, so I think for me, the thing that I keep thinking about is I live in Georgia. So when you get out into the rural area, and I don't know if anybody's had this experience, you go to like a restaurant and bar and you walk in, the first thing you look for is like, is there another Black person here? Like, that's all I need to know, because I just need to know if I'm supposed to be here or not. Because I've had that experience where I walk into a restaurant or bar and I'm like, okay, I'm not supposed to be here. So let me get what I need to get and get out. And I think we have our feeders set up a lot of times in that way. And so it's for us, like we have like diverse, like, so first of all, the way you make someone feel comfortable is you put diversity on your stage. Like that's number one. There needs to be diversity on your stage, in your volunteers, in your teachers, all across the board. That's the number one thing that people are going to look for to feel comfortable in your space. And the second thing is, like, you have to pursue diversity. You can't just sit back and hope that it comes to you. You have to go out and you have to get it. We've been blessed enough that we have some companies that actually donate to us for our diversity scholarships. So we have, every class, we have about 20 spots that are already paid for, that we are going out and we're pursuing people who maybe are thinking about improv, have thought about improv, and we're like, no, here, free class. We want you in our class system. We want you coming through our system so that we can make sure that you're there, so that you can be there, learn something, experience something great, but also help the theater by creating a space that feels, we're not saying it's a safe space, we're showing that it's a safe space. And so that's the number one thing. And then the other thing that we do, we had a celebrity guest who will remain nameless, who came and managed to make every woman in the on every performance that he ever did feel super uncomfortable. And so as a result of that, we started what we call check-ins. And so before each show, we go around all the performers and we talk about, here are what my boundaries are. Here are my triggers. Here is what I'm comfortable and not comfortable doing. And we check in, even though we've been doing improv with some of these folks for, 10, 15 years, we do it before every single show. And we make sure that we establish what is okay for you, what is off limits, what is on limits, and those type of things for each individual performer. And don't assume that because this is how we've always done it at the theater, that everybody's okay with the way that we've always done it. So those are kind of some of the big things that we do to kind of make people feel safe.
Great. Thank you. And Jon, I'm coming right back to you on this one. Just building upon that, you gave some great things that you guys do in order to bring in diversity. How do you, and how does your theater, and how do you work to retain diverse students?
I mean, it's kind of the answer. It's putting those, giving them people, if they can see themselves on stage, they'll believe that they have a chance to get on stage. And it goes back, we have some affinity nights. We have, we do our Dark Side of the Room does a show quarterly. We have our big anniversary show once a year where it's an all Black improv night. And so we have our group, which is an established group, but we always try to find a younger Black improv group and bring them with us to that show. We look for, and we also use it for an opportunity to like kind of diversify, not just the people, but what we're doing. So strangely, we have a really good relationship with the Atlanta Opera in town. And so they have Black opera singers. So one of the funniest things we got to do was like, we did an improv set. We had one of our opera singers do a Lizzo song as an opera piece. And it was amazing. Then we had another group. So like, it wasn't just about doing Black improv, but finding ways to lift up a bunch of Black voices, and it created a really cool show that feels very rounded, and like there's a lot going on and you feel like you really got a lot for your money. So finding different ways to do that. But like, for me, the answer is simple. If I can see myself on stage, I believe I can get on stage. That's it.
Great. Julia, anything to add on this one?
My biggest thing is outreach. I'm creating programs, or have also created programs for schools, because I didn't know about improv. As a teenager, I learned in acting school, and it was a required class. If it wasn't for that, I would have no idea about this amazing art form. So my goal has always been to programming. So getting out in schools, doing shows at different venues. With the theater that I'm creating and working now, we're actually working on some of those programs and reaching out to not just schools, but like even like just making ourselves known in like senior citizen homes. We're talking about doing like a prison program for, prisoners, and, just, we have all types of things. But I think when we go out into our communities, when we go out and seek those who may never even know about this amazing art form, then it will bring in so many more diverse students, even if they do it for like a short period of time. So yeah.
Keisha, how about you? Anything that you've seen that has helped with retention of diverse students?
It's speaking to what Jon said. It's about seeing yourself. And for me, as an awkward, multi-hyphenate Black woman, not being able to see myself and then finally seeing myself, it changed everything. So uh, having the diverse nights and really having partnerships and mentorships and moments where we can all hang and see, go out to the community, celebrate the Black opera singers, and really have those moments where we cannot feel so lonely, because that was the thing I always got from students. People feel so alone. And that's the thing about this. I don't want people to feel alone. And so, any way we can do that by seeing ourselves, creating community, building that community, that's what we got to do.
Last but not least, Keith.
I'm so drawn into everything everybody else is saying that I have to now follow that up. First of all, my part of my story is that when I first saw, when I first started doing improv, learning it or whatever, but I went to a festival in North Carolina, and a group from New York called Nobody's Token came through, and they were like a long form sitcom style, and they did the whole opening like the Bill Cosby show. It was like dun 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 dun. Then they took one word, they did sweeps, and I was like, what is happening? What is going on? I was like absolutely mesmerized. I was like, that's it. This is what I need to do right here. And so from that, I knew that seeing myself, I brought that back. And my castmates were like, what are you talking about? I was like, oh, you guys don't understand. We need to figure out how to do this. And that's when I got interested in long form. So some of the things that we're doing better with improv is making sure that we highlight diverse groups. So some of the episodes we'll be talking about that. With Queen City Comedy, we have ladies improv night where we have just women and show their talents up front. They have LGBTQ shows specifically, so you can come out and see the talents there. We have all kinds of stuff. So those are the kind of things that we want to do. But really, the most rewarding is when I got, like Julie said, go into the school. So we did the entire Charlotte Mecklenburg school system and got a chance to do the after school program and do it. And I had a case where one kid on my way out, he grabbed my leg and he said, "Oh, Keith, wait." I'm like, "What?" He says, "Will you be my grandfather?" And I said, at first I was like, why can't I be your father? Why I have to be your grandfather? Like, what's up with that? But it was so impressive that, these guys, some of them, just having a real tough time. Some of them are in some really bad schools, and you just come in and be the fun guy and teach them improv. And then you have people who come in, and I see people that look like me. I'm drawn to them. I don't want to be, I don't want to discriminate in reverse, but I'm drawn to them, and I want to coach them, and I want to help them. So those are the kind of things, shouting it out. And the last thing is that I'm going to be doing a takeover for the Improv Boost. And the mission of the Improv Boost is to highlight small improv groups. And so I'm going to be there for the whole week taking over. I'm going to be shouting everybody out. There's a huge community for that. David Escobodo is the founder of the Improv Boost. And I just wanted to, that's going to come up in August. That's going to be fun. So those are the things that's popping for that.
Great. Well, I want to commend all of you. I know that you guys gave your time on this nice Thursday evening, and we appreciate that. You guys gave us some tremendous answers, some great things for us at Baltimore Improv Group to use and to learn from, and also just for anybody watching. I think if you tuned into this, you definitely learned some great things. And you guys have some great timing, because we got through all 5 of the questions, and it's right at 8 o'clock. So that's because y'all are funny. Y'all got natural timing. So I want to thank all of our panelists. I want to thank our team that put together the questions. I want to thank Michael for putting this all together. And please stay tuned for follow-up sessions, as well as we will be addressing some of the questions that we received in the chat today. So again, thank you everybody, and have a good night.